Hello, everyone. I am so excited to have a special guest, Scott Howell, on the show. Uh, we're here for another episode of Plug Into Devin, and Scott is the former Senate Minority Leader here in Utah. He served for a decade in the Utah Senate. He also used to work at IBM, 34 years at IBM, and it was also the Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate in 2000 and 2012. And now he is a government relations consultant. So he is a big deal in Utah politics. In fact, I think his license plate is big deal. So if you see that license plate, that's Scott. So Scott, welcome to the show.
Devin, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I just love your show, and what a great job you do, and what a great message. And you have so many creative, wonderful guests on that I feel honored to be here with you today. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on. Scott, what do you want to talk about today?
You know, at top of the list, you couldn't pass up COVID-19, right? In this day and age of what's going on. But I think to lead into it, and how I even got interested in politics, it was education. That's always been a passion of mine. Early on, when at IBM, I had an assignment to look at the global marketplace in education. And it was really interesting to see what was the dynamics of what was happening in Japan and India and other countries about this education and what they were preparing their students to compete in a global economy. And that's what really drove my excitement about running for public office, is because there was no better place than in public service that one could change the dynamics of education, starting at pre-K and going all through lifelong learning. And so for me, I think education is still paramount to the success of our community, to the success of what we do as a society, to compete in a global economy. Recently, I saw a technology video where there was an analysis of the jobs that are here today. Within 36 to 48 months, they'll all be gone. And what was dramatic about that is not only the technology, but it was the inclusion of artificial intelligence. And when you look at AI and you look at the dynamics of that, it is just overwhelming. But if we don't keep up with education starting in pre-K, then we cannot compete in a global economy. And that's why it's always been a passion to me. I think about when I was in the legislature back in, I think it was 2000, I ran a bill that would talk about online voting. And I'll never forget when we were debating the bill, there were all these naysayers, oh, it'll never happen in our lifetime, it'll never be there. And one guy said to me, when pigs fly, it'll happen. So I've been wearing my little t-shirt that has a little emblem of a pig flying, because we voted online, both parties did. Yeah. And it was safe and it was secure and it was there. But more importantly, I think about the delivery of education and what is happening. It's a virtual world, and if there's any silver lining on COVID-19, it is that it has launched us into a virtual world. Everything from our worship services to our family lives, there's not one aspect that hasn't been had an influence in the way we do things that isn't virtual. I mean, everything is on it. I watched this series the other night on Amazon Prime. It was called Upload, and it showed the future of our country. And I mean, it's a fiction, of course, but it was so interesting to me to see how the autonomous vehicles and what that means and where they are. My wife and I drove a Tesla the other day, and it was amazing to us. You know, we didn't touch the steering wheel, and it braked and it did everything else. But how we have our kids ready for that environment is going to be the real test of leadership for people like yourself that are running for Congress, state leaders, local community leaders. How they embrace this new virtual reality and what they do with it is going to be the benchmark, I believe, that will start with education, the pre-K. The other night we had a little family thing, and my my 6-year-old granddaughter, and no, she's actually 8. She just turned 8. And then her sister, who's 10, they took all the technology and put together a presentation for us. They went out and they did the video, they did the big view, they used all these different resources, and they're 8 and 10. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, look at that. So that's why education has been number one on my mind, Devin. And I think for all of us, if we can stay competitive in our education, and that means good quality teachers, that means paying teachers, that means respecting that work that they do. And this is not a Democrat or Republican thing. This is about us as a society coming together and showing our commitment and our passion to have our children the best generation that there can be.
That's such a good point. Such a good point. Scott, you've had a tremendous influence in Utah politics over the last 30 years. What is your superpower?
Well, you're very kind to say that. Sometimes I wonder when I write op-eds or I do social media posts and I get all those wonderful comments back. I think superpower is really respecting people. I think it's listening to people. I think the real genuine power comes when you're able to communicate with another individual and you're able to look beyond the person, but you're able to go inside and you're able to determine, what really, how you can help. And public service is all about giving back. It's not about me. It's never about me. And I see many of my colleagues, former colleagues up at the legislature now, and they've pivoted. It's not about we, it's about themselves. And I see that way too much in politics today. It's almost like, well, I'll help you on this bill, but what's in it for me? And I think superpower comes from the fact of, and I don't see myself as that, really what I see myself as someone who's giving back of so many people who gave to me. And I use that not in an ecclesiastical sense, but in a real community service of looking at the whole as opposed to looking at a very narrow segment. And I think the ability to sit down and really understand someone's heart and soul, and it starts there. And then it multiplies up to their community service. And it also multiplies up to what they're trying to do to make a difference in the world. I think about you running for office. I mean, you've had so many life experiences. And what makes you so unique is that you're transforming those life experiences into real policy. And that's what people want. They don't want to get caught up in the minutia of a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. What they want is, please help. Kids are being challenged on loan forgiveness, how they're going to deal with that. I think this generation that's down there also is concerned about what's happening at this very moment instead of having a broader view. And it's people who have life experience like you that share the broader view with them that relates to them and translates into, it's not the end all right now. COVID-19, we're going to beat it. I love what Berkshire Hathaway CEO said, don't ever bet against America. I thought that statement was so strong when he made that at their annual meeting. I think it was on last Friday. Yeah. But that's kind of the feeling about superpower, is that it's really not power unless you have the ability to share that with everyone. Then it becomes more of a mentoring, more of an influencer, more of a decision maker. But that's the key, in my opinion.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate your insights, your wisdom. Before you go, tell people how they can learn more about your work and how they can connect with you.
Well, it's really pretty simple. Just scotthowell.com. You can look up that. Also, I'm one of these unusual people. I give out my cell phone number because, there is no privacy in today's world. That as soon as you got your smartphone, you gave that all up. So people can contact me by what I think is one of the most powerful tools that we have in our arsenal of change as change agents. It's 801-971-1953. And it's scotthowell.utah@gmail.com. And I'm pretty responsive on all that.
Oh, fantastic. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We wish you every success in your great work to improve education and the quality of life in Utah.
Thank you, Devin, and best of luck to you.
All righty. Let's be bold together.
Amen.
I'm Devin Thorpe. For the last 8 years, I've been working full-time to eradicate extreme poverty, improve global health, and fight climate change. I've concluded that the best way for me to continue my work is to run for Congress to represent the people of Utah's 3rd District. In Utah, we have common shared values. Those things unite us. I believe passionately in our ability to come together, and I believe that working together, we can solve Utah's problems. I'm Devin Thorpe. I'm a Democrat. I'm running to represent the people of Utah's 3rd District.
I'm Devin Thorpe, a candidate for Congress, and I approve this message.